She will never strike you directly. Not at first. She won't pull a knife, raise her voice, or threaten your life with fire and fury. No. She'll simply smile, delay, disagree softly. Change her mind without warning. And watch what you do with the subtle pressure she applies. That's the first test. And if you fail, there will be no blood, only surrender. Because once a man yields his frame, his time, and his reason to win a woman's favor, he has already lost something far greater than her respect. He has lost his authority over himself. Machiavelli once wrote, "He who becomes master of a city accustomed to freedom and does not destroy it may expect to be destroyed by it." And you begin to understand why most men lose everything. They try to win women without dismantling their illusions. They try to lead without testing loyalty. They try to keep a throne without testing the court. And so they are devoured by what they failed to inspect. Let us be honest. Women are not chaotic by nature. They are calculating, not because they are cruel, but because life demands it. A woman who cannot test a man's strength cannot survive. And so, from the very moment you speak, she is watching not just what you say, but why you say it. She studies how much you flinch when she's late, how quickly you forgive when she breaks a promise, how eagerly you accommodate her contradictions. What you call grace or understanding, she interprets as weakness. And Machiavelli warned, "A prince who is not himself shrewd cannot be well counseled." This is your failure, man. You believe your willingness to please earns love. But Machiavelli teaches that it is much safer to be feared than loved when one of the two must be lacking. Understand this. A woman may love the man she can manipulate, but she respects the one she cannot move. And between the two, it is respect that keeps her loyalty, not affection. In the court of power, everyone is watching your reaction to disobedience. She shows up late. Will you adjust your schedule or your standard? She mentions her ex. Will you grow insecure or unbothered? She dismisses your ideas. Do you remain unmoved or gravel for agreement? Every moment is a referendum on your strength. And she is not the only one voting. Now, if you think this is about playing games, you're still asleep. This is not seduction. This is sovereignty. The man who cannot test a woman is like a king who never inspects his borders. He will be invaded, exploited, and overthrown without ever knowing the first sign of war. Why? Because he mistook her smile for peace. But Machiavelli warned that appearances are the enemy of truth. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. And women, perhaps more than anyone, are masters of appearing agreeable while testing for strength. She may laugh at your jokes and call you sweet, and yet push your boundaries like a foreign power testing your defenses. She will not ask, "Can I control you?" She will try. And the moment you fold, you've taught her who you are. Not the ruler, but the ruled. You were never taught to test. You were taught to trust. You were told that love is earned through kindness and provision. That a good woman will see the good in you if you simply treat her well. But Machiavelli would laugh at this notion, because in every arena where power is at stake, only fools lead with goodness. A man who wishes to act entirely up to his professions of virtue soon meets with what destroys him among so much that is evil. You were not born into peace. You were born into evaluation. And a woman, even the kindest of them, does not love you for your virtue. She loves you for your gravity, for your ability to resist, to assert, to remain unmoved by her storms. If she cries, will you fold? If she disrespects, will you chase? If she disappears, will you wait like a dog by the door? Or carry on like a man whose purpose was never centered around her validation. These are her tests, not spoken, but deployed like invisible trip-wires across every interaction. She does not explain them, because she doesn't have to. She's watching how you respond to silence, tension, disagreement. She's watching how quickly you negotiate with your own standards just to keep her smiling. And when you do, the smile stays, but the respect evaporates. This is why so many men lose power with ever hearing the word no. She simply becomes colder, less responsive, less affectionate. You don't understand what happened. But what happened was simple. She saw your soft core, and now she can never unsee it. Machiavelli advised rulers to simulate virtue, but not to practice it fully. It is well to appear merciful, faithful, humane, sincere, religious, and also to be so. But you must be ready to change to the opposite if necessity commands it. If necessity commands it, that's what modern men ignore. You live in a world where softness is celebrated, but never rewarded, where men who expose their vulnerability too soon are not praised but quietly dismissed. And so you must test. Not for revenge, not for control, but for clarity. You must know. Is she with you because you bend, or because you don't? Is her loyalty real, or is it a performance maintained by your unbroken compliance? You won't find the answer in comfort. You'll find it only when you disrupt the script. Tell her no, and watch what shakes. Withhold attention, and see what remains. Speak truth, and listen for silence. A woman who is stable, grounded, and worthy will not flinch at your standards. She will respect them, even if they frustrate her. But a woman who lives for domination will not tolerate a man she cannot move. And this is where most men fall. Not because they lack strength, but because they lack the will to use it. You've trained yourself to please. You've been taught that resistance means rejection. But the truth is colder. Pleasing guarantees rejection, and resistance reveals character. Let me repeat that. Pleasing guarantees rejection, and resistance reveals character. The Machiavellian man does not argue. He does not explain. He observes. He withholds. He tests. Because what cannot withstand scrutiny is not worth keeping. And what collapses under pressure was never real. A woman will never tell you what she respects. She will only reveal it through what she stays for. She may say she wants a kind man, and yet disappear the moment you prioritize her feelings over your convictions. She may swear she values honesty, and yet rage when your truth conflicts with her fantasy. And this is why the test must always be silent. Not announced, not explained, executed, because only in silence does her instinct speak. And instinct is what Machiavelli studied with more discipline than sentiment. He didn't write for men who wanted to be liked. He wrote for men who wanted to rule. And his warnings were clear. The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. In your case, the same principle applies. You want to know your worth? Look at the woman beside you, not how she looks, how she responds to resistance. If she is only soft when you're soft, if she is only close when you're convenient, if she only loves the man who bends, you are not respected. You are tolerated until something more interesting comes along. The test is not about punishment. It is about information. If you ask nothing of her, she will show you nothing. If you let every red flag pass, she will plant more. And yet, the moment you require clarity, the moment you withdraw comfort without explanation, the moment you say no with a straight face and quiet voice, she will have no script. Her performance ends, and her essence begins. Will she adapt or accuse? Will she lean in or fall silent? Will she offer value or remind you of what you owe her? Her reaction is your report card. Machiavelli's principle still applies. It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles. It is not your role that commands respect. It is how you uphold it when pressure arrives. Now, consider how rare this kind of strength is. Most men fold at the first sign of emotional discomfort. They mistake tears for truth. They confuse chaos with passion. And they justify abuse in the name of love. But Machiavelli would remind them. The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present. She promised to love you when you looked like a man. But when she saw you yield to her moods, accommodate her manipulations, and center your life around keeping her calm, she broke her word. And she was right too, because you broke the illusion of strength. And still, most men continue. They double down on validation, thinking the woman is just going through something. They become emotional caregivers, therapists, servants, and then call it masculinity. But a Machiavellian man does not comfort dysfunction. He filters it, quietly, coldly, without needing to fix or redeem what has already shown its form. She does not need more love. She needs a mirror. And you, if you are worthy, must become that mirror. Still, unshaken, demanding nothing but truth, and walking away from anything less. Do not mistake her silence for surrender. A woman rarely explodes when you begin to test her. She observes. She recalibrates. She may even become sweeter temporarily. But behind her softness is calculation. She's trying to assess whether your sudden strength is a phase, a trick, or your true form. Because the moment you set a boundary, you've declared war on the version of her that was winning. And now she has a choice: evolve or escalate. If she escalates with guilt, coldness, drama, or withdrawal, you must not move. Because here is where most men lose everything. They test once, get backlash, and retreat. They believe the discomfort is a sign to compromise. But Machiavelli warned, injuries must be inflicted all at once so that their ill's savor may be less. Meaning, if you are going to assert control, do it fully, immediately, without hesitation. Do not test her 1 week, then collapse the next. Inconsistency invites chaos, and chaos is her natural habitat. Understand this. A woman's resistance to your boundaries is not the problem. Her reaction to your consistency is the truth. Any woman can appear composed for a few days. But how does she act after the third time you tell her no? How does she behave when you ignore her theatrics? When you change the dynamic from "entertain me" to "prove you belong"? Most will flinch. Some will flee. A few, the rare ones, will adapt. And those are the ones you watch, slowly, carefully, never fully trusting, but beginning to observe patterns. And this is the Machiavellian frame. A wise man ought always to follow the paths beaten by great men and imitate those who have been supreme. You do not reinvent testing. You refine it. You do not broadcast your standards. You enforce them quietly. And you do not make exceptions because of how she looks, what she promises, or how lonely you feel. Because the test is not just for her. It's for you. Can you live without affection long enough to see the truth? Can you go without intimacy, approval, or routine comfort long enough to see her without the mask? Most men can't. They say they want clarity, but fold at the first cold night. They say they want a queen, but kneel to anyone who offers attention. But Machiavelli would remind them, men are driven by two principal impulses, either by love or by fear. If your relationship is driven by your fear of losing her, you are not in love. You are in submission. You cannot lead a woman you fear upsetting. You cannot protect a woman you depend on for purpose. And you cannot test a woman whose reaction means more to you than your own sanity. So, you begin small. You cancel a plan. You say no. You remain quiet when she's fishing for a reaction. You let her sit with her own emotions, without offering your energy as a solution. And then you watch, not with hope, but with detachment. Not to punish, but to understand. This is the way of the prince. Not because it's cruel, but because it's the only way to rule without being ruled. The woman you cannot test is the woman who will dismantle you slowly, gently, with smiles, sex, and 1,000 little permissions you gave without realizing you were surrendering. One skipped confrontation. One ignored boundary. One apology you didn't owe. She didn't need to raise her voice. You gave her your spine in exchange for her attention and called it intimacy. But a woman who passes your test, she will not flatter you. She will not worship you. She will walk beside you. And when you push, she will hold her shape. Not because she fears you, but because she respects the man who does not flinch. That's the rare woman. And she cannot be found unless you learn to filter with discipline and endure with silence. Because everything that feels good in the beginning can be a trap. The compliments, the affection, the way she seems to get you. Machiavelli wrote, "The vulgar crowd always is taken by appearances, and the world consists chiefly of the vulgar." And that is the tragedy of the modern man. He looks, he assumes, he invests, and by the time he realizes he's been selected for his weakness rather than his strength, it's already too late. You are paying the price, not for choosing the wrong woman, but for refusing to test her. So now, the choice is yours. You can leave this video and return to your life, pretending that love is pure, that effort is enough, that boundaries are harsh and women are innocent. Or, you can begin. You can test her silence, test her anger, test her consistency, test her gratitude, test her reaction to the word no. Because any woman who cannot withstand scrutiny does not deserve your investment. And any man who refuses to test is already lost. If you found truth in these words, if this hit something deep that you didn't want to admit, then share it. Like this video. Subscribe to the channel. And support the movement using the link in the description. Every time you share this message, another man wakes up before it's too late. And that might be the most Machiavellian move of all. Awakening the kingdom before the invaders come. This was Machiavelli's trick, to test a woman before she strips your power. Now test everything and trust no mask.